so I hope that God will speak through this and give you something that you can take with you for this week. The title on this one here, Show Your Colors, or What Are You Wearing? Question mark. You can probably emphasize it in a different way. You know, you've got different teams, right? And whenever they play each other, most of them have their own set of colors. Because when you have the Chiefs are playing the Broncos, either the Broncos are in blue, orange, or white, and the Chiefs are either in red or white. You know, they got different colors. You know, that kind of indicate that they're on a different team. So I was kind of wondering here, does the color mean anything? Notice here, blue, you know, and this was actually more of a red-orange in reality to it. And I started noticing this kind of theme showing up quite a bit. And there. Well, look. Blue tie, reddish kind of tie, blue tie, reddish kind of tie, red tie, and even his is more of a blue purple.
Purple is red and blue.
I know, but it's more still towards the blue. He didn't quite get to the head to spray paint it later on. You know? And then blue again. Now we'll give him credit for this. This was his second inauguration. The first inauguration he wore a red tie. Wow. Because when I looked it up and stuff, he wore a red tie for that first one. So maybe things were a little bit close to there. And then he didn't have a tie, but he's got a red kind of thing that's going around there. So, you know, I'm beginning to wonder, and I notice this a lot whenever you have both Republicans and Democrats together, that the Democrats seem to wear something that's more bluish for their ties, and the Republicans tend to wear something more reddish. So I'm thinking, are they trying to make a statement here?
They're Bloods and Crips.
And what? Bloods and Crips. There we go. You know, and you do have groups like that too, as well. You know, and maybe there's some similarities there. I don't know. But you know, it's just kind of like that. You know, we're trying to show what team we're on or who we belong to. And so I started thinking about what are we wearing? What am I wearing? Okay. And so, you know, have you ever been in a situation where you're talking to your wife or your person that's important to you, type person? You're gonna go to someplace together, and you go, well, what are you wearing today? You know, I have to do that all the time. Otherwise, with my wife to make sure that I'm not dressing in a way that would be embarrassing for her. So, you know, so what are you wearing to the? Well, maybe you're going to a dance. So you have to think about, what am I going to wear at the dance? So here we got some people here. I'm sure that this guy did not get the memo. You know, he kind of stands out there with his jeans on there. But, you know, everybody, it's kind of a semi-formal, yeah. It's not, you know, long gowns or anything like that. But, you know, a couple of the guys there are dressed up ties, but they've got kind of suits or something like that on. Then you've got this group that has to be the same.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't see somebody with a tie there, right? Okay, so, you know, they all got hats, except for maybe, there's like two of them don't have hats, but they probably had them, they just quite blew away in the end there. But, you know, they all got dressed alike, or you might have someone who's just dressing up really nice for the dance. I mean, this is going to be a very nice dance, and sort of going to go that way. You know, last week, I think it was last week, weekend, that Brenda and I went to a thing that was going to be about for our lawyer. Our lawyer gave this appreciation thing, basically to drum up more business. And I'm just asking Brenda, what should I wear to this? You know, I don't know how much dress up I need to be. The only thing I realized after I got there is that I basically needed gray hair. Gray hair. Because most of the people there were older people that had gray hair and stuff, because it was the lawyers dealing with wills and stuff like that. And so a lot of people were there for that type of thing. And so sometimes, you know, you go to a banquet, you know, how am I going to dress for this banquet? You know, what should I be like when I'm dressing for this banquet? So, you know, these guys here, the banquet looks really nice and everything, but they're kind of dressed up in, I think this one's got curlers in their hair. So, you know, they're not dressed up that much. You know, this banquet evidently they didn't need to be dressed up too much with it. But in some banquets, maybe you got to dress a certain style. You know, otherwise you won't fit in quite right. And then, if it's really an elegant banquet, you better come in an elegant manner.
Wow.
And have somebody famous on your arm. Okay? Or have you with somebody. Be somebody that you're holding onto their arm. You know, church.
Forrest Gump looked pretty good.
Forrest Gump looked pretty good there? He actually looked more like Forrest Gump. Okay. We, at church, you know, you can sometimes tell how people dress by how they go to church. You're driving here, and you see some people driving elsewhere, and you see how they're dressed, and you kind of get an idea of where they're going and everything. If you were down south,
Yeah.
you know, you would dress a certain way. Because if you came dressed like most of us come here, then they're gonna go, who is this person? And they must be from, you know, someplace.
Washington.
Yeah, Washington. someplace different, you know, to it. And so, you know, usually by the way a person dresses, you can kind of tell. Maybe if I can get this thing to work. Why isn't that going over? Low battery.
Uh-oh.
Okay, we'll try that next. There we go. You can tell pretty much where a person's at as far as what church they go to. Sometimes by the way they dress. Or who they're involved with, what group they're involved with. You know, this guy here is pretty well known for his little dress. You know, I think he got married to do that way. And this guy's been pretty well known here lately, as far as at least somebody.
He's out of work
We know what group he goes to, that he belongs to, right? And then, of course, the pt1 type ones over there, they have a little bit different type of it. So they know, you kind of can tell who they are with. And then these guys come to your door, and you definitely know based on how they're dressing, right?
Yeah.
You know, who they are with. You can pretty much get out your Book of Mormon to share with them, right? Okay, so this started me thinking, how do people know who we belong to?